Hi everyone, in this session we're going to be talking about Booleans, Loft and Lathe. First of all, I'm just going to create a small box and I want to create another geometry, doesn't matter which one, let's say a cylinder, and I want to subtract these objects from each other. Let's say I want to have this box have this kind of hole in it, which is this cylinder, or any other shape, doesn't matter. Select this geometry, the box in this case, and go to Create Geometry, and instead of Standard Primitives, go to Compound Objects. And here you can use something called Pro Boolean, okay? Inside the Pro Boolean, you have different options. If you want to use union, you can unite these two together, do the intersection, you will end up with the intersection part only, or subtraction, or merge, or attach, or insert, and so on. Mainly, the mostly used is basic subtraction and union. Sometimes intersection is used to make things, to find the combination between both. So let's go subtraction. I'm selecting this box, so I'm gonna subtract. I'm going to start picking, and in my case I have only this geometry, so I'm going to start picking this object. And you can see I have a hole in this. If I want to draw something else, I'm going to go back to standard primitives, maybe a sphere now. I'm just going to draw a sphere here, penetrating this box, and I'm going to go the same way. Create geometry, standard primitives instead of standard primitives, compound object, Pro Boolean. And I'm going to go into subtraction, start picking this object. Done. So now you can see I can delete things from each other. I can do the same thing using union or something else. For example, I'm going to maybe draw another sphere, something here. Let's say something like that. So I'm going to select this, create geometry compound object, Boolean or Pro Boolean, and I'm going to go union. Now I'm going to start picking and I'm going to pick this. Okay, so now this is intersected. Okay, it's connected to each other. So if I go F3, you can see that this is basically cut from the inside. Okay, this is the thing that differs between union and other things like attach or something else. Okay, so this is the first option, is talking about Booleans. The second thing I want to talk about is basically, let's say I have, let's say an arc. I have this kind of arc, and we talked about drawing 2D lines and then going inside the 2D lines in the modifier tab, rendering. I can just go to enable render, enable in viewport, and I can change the thickness if I want it to be circular or rectangular. The thing is, what if I want it to be something else, any other shape, a shape that you can draw randomly or import it from external software such as Illustrator, or just use any shapes from it. For example, in my case, I'm just going to get a star, for example. I want this line, okay, I want this line to be thick, but not circular, not rectangular. I want it to be this kind of shape. So all I need to do is select the line, go to Create, Geometry, and Compound Object. And now I'm going to use something called Loft. So I'm going to go to Loft, and then, because I've already selected the path, I need to get the shape. So get shape, and this is my shape. Click on it, and it will immediately change into this shape. And the good thing about that is that this shape is live, which means if I go to the modifier and I add an edit spline to it, okay, if I move anything from this star, you can see it's automatically adjusted. Okay, that's basically Loft. The third thing is basically called Lathe. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to draw an outline of any object, for example a line, Let's say I'm going to draw a wine cup, okay, wine glass. So I'm just gonna go line, I'm gonna go snap 2.5D, right click here, I'm just gonna make sure I'm snapping to the grid points so I can draw something more accurate. So let's say something like that. The wine is gonna be a bit big in here, and I can adjust this later on. So let's say here, then go here, and this is definitely this is not the best wine glass, but I can just adjust this later on. So I'm just gonna make it a bit thicker here, and I make it gonna select this. I'm gonna go inside the line. I'm gonna go to a place called fillet. I'm gonna fillet this out. So I want it to be something like that. I want this to be much bigger because I want the cup to be rounded from down. Same thing in here. I want it to be filleted like this. Same thing in here. I want it to be filleted like this. I want it to be a bit bigger, and that's it. Okay. Now the glass I want it to be a bit thicker because this is too thin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to spline, and then I'm going to go to outline. I'm going to add thickness, inner or outer. In my case, I'm going to add an inner thickness to have a thick glass from here. But the thing is that this part in here, I don't really need it because this part is usually a thick glass. So what I want is basically this point. Okay, I'm just gonna go move it somewhere here. I can snap it if I want to be more accurate. I can just go snap to this point, and I'm gonna move just gonna go corner. Okay, maybe something like that. I think this is good. And I'm gonna fillet this up to make it more thin. Rounded. Okay, so this is my outline of the glass. Okay, it's gonna come here, and in here it's gonna continue from the other side, and this is the thickness of the handle, and this is the base. So I drew the outline of this glass, and then I'm gonna go to modifier. Just make sure that this point is coherent with this point, so I don't have any holes in the middle. Okay, so I won't have holes. So this is snap to this point, and this is snap to this point. That's why I did snapping. So now I go to modifier called lathe, and this is what I get. Okay, this is not exactly what I wanted, so I just go to the modifier. Okay, let me explain in here, it will make more sense. This is basically my lathe value, or something called revolve in some other software. So it's revolving around, I'm not sure if you can see this black line. So based on this line, which is the midpoint, the pivot point. Okay, based on the pivot point, it's rotating. In my case, okay, I don't want it to revolve around the midpoint, or sorry, the pivot point. This is here. I want it to revolve around this point, which is the last point on my left. So what I need to do is just change here, okay, the alignment from center or minimum or maximum. Minimum is, if you can see the line is here. Maximum is basically the last point, the furthest point on my left, which is here, okay, and the center is basically the center which is close to this to the pivot point. In my case, I want to go midpoint, minimum. So I'm going to just revolve this, and this is what I'm going to get. Okay, so revolve from here. Now, I think this is like going the opposite way. Okay, I can flip normals, so I can flip the faces from being inwards to go outwards. I can also, you can see here, I can weld cores, which is here, and the core in here, which is where it is revolving. Okay, and now this is what I want. Another thing I can add is basically the segments to make it more smooth. Okay, and done. Voila. Okay, if I think the handle is a bit too thick, it's not a big deal. I can just go back to the vertices, and I can just adjust, or maybe this segment. Just gonna adjust this segment, push it a bit further to make it thinner. Okay, You see? Okay, if I want this curve to be a bit different, I want to have this thing maybe more, let's say, more thinner here. So I can just go this way, and now I have a thinner base. So I ended up with this kind of glass. Now I can just add materials to it, have a glass material to it, and I'm done. Okay, so I just passed through. This is a small combination between 2D lines and 3D geometry. After I just introduce edit poly modifier and 3D modeling, and then introduce edit spline modifier and 2D modeling. Now I'm just combining between 2D and 3D, where I can just have some kind of combination and work around with it. Thank you.